Hey everybody, it's Deanna, and this is Fearless Entrepreneurship Live. I have my dear friend with me, Jere B, the Entre musician. How are you, Jerry?
Always excellent. How are you?
You know what? I'm doing really well. I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day out here in Montana.
In Youngstown it's rainy and I wore my fall jacket into the studio. So,
Did you really? Okay,
yes, I
that's
did.
not good, but it'll get nicer. The sky's gonna brighten up over there, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Hopefully.
I'm optimistic.
Yeah. So Jerry and I, just for those of you watching, Jerry and I met a while ago, and I always forget how we met and all that. It just seems like I've known you forever,
I
and
know.
I've gotten right. And honestly, you're such a great guy, and I kind of left because when I was back in Ohio, I was actually with your daughter Ayana. She was interviewing me for her podcast,
Yeah,
and you and my husband Jason kind of hung out in the recording studio. I don't
right.
know what you two talked about, but he is like Team Jerry B all day long. He is a great guy. I'm like, I know.
Jason is a great spirit. We had, just like you and I, we just bonded in that few minutes that we were together. He's a wonderful spirit and
Yeah.
love him.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So, Jerry, tell me about, because you are a pastor, a musician, you've got the entre musician. So, tell me a little bit about what you do, because you're going to explain it much better than I can.
First and foremost, I'm a husband.
Oh, all right. You better put that in there, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. We just celebrated. My wife Lori and I celebrated 25 years. So I love my
Congratulations.
wife. I'm grateful for our marriage, for our home. We have three beautiful daughters. One whom you know, but she
Yeah.
is the youngest. Diana is the youngest, and there's Nia, and there's Tijay, who's our oldest. And so we've really been blessed.
Yeah.
Um, I am a man of faith. I esteem my faith more than my position as a pastor, but I'm an associate pastor at Victory Christian Center, Coatesville campus under Pastor Juan Rivera, and grateful to serve the ministry there. And
Yeah.
thirdly, I'm an entre musician, which means that as the fearless entrepreneur, what I have been blessed to do is to hone the the concept of not just being the musician who is so focused on their art that they forget about business, they forget about marketing, they
Ooh.
forget about the strategy, they forget
Yeah.
about the management of their career and everything that they should be doing to make sure that that bridge is consistent and there's continuity.
And that's so important I think when you're an artist in general, and I've talked to different artists, right? With whatever form that may look like, and they're really good at what they do, but sometimes that business part of it, I mean, that doesn't just come natural to a lot of people.
It
And you
doesn't.
really don't know what to do. Like you love your art and you love what you do, but how do you really manage it
Yeah.
effectively? So that's kind of cool that you do that. And how do you teach them? Like, are you like consulting with them? Do you work with them one on one, or is it part of a larger group?
Well, the On Ramp is a podcast, the Entre Musician podcast, which is available on whatever platform you listen to podcast on, and so that subscribership has been growing organically. It's not like growing rapidly like I would like it to, but it is growing. And the second thing is the website, theentremusician.com, spelt just like you see down there at the bottom of the screen. And we put articles and resources and contracts and agreements and different things that you would need to grow your career. So there's a bunch of resources there, as well as the expanding community. And thirdly, like we were talking off camera, prior to coming on, is we formed a mastermind group, but we're keeping that mastermind group kind of tiny, just to make sure that we're honing in on the greater strategies that are this pandemic, this situation that has come about, which has really left a lot of musicians strapped. So this is a third phase that is just very, very old. It's still in its infancy, but we really are trying to build that community so that when situations come about, we can be moving on. There are people who make money in recessions. There are people who make money, or I should say companies, businesses who make money during crisis situations. Why not musicians?
Right, right, absolutely. So tell me some of the hardships musicians are facing right now with this pandemic. Obviously, going live
Yeah.
and playing at different venues has been out. What what are you hearing from musicians is like their biggest struggle right now?
Wow, it's across the board. It really is. I mean, I have a close personal friend who lost 5 streams of income.
Oh my
He
God.
is a professional musician. Um, there is nothing else that this gentleman does. I mean, he's had his own band, which they cannot, perform. He was involved in his church. So churches being closed, they're just starting to open up, some of them, depending on the region you're in. But that was an income he lost. He was touring with A-list musicians because of the city he stays in. He was staying in a major city where a lot of great Grammy award-winning musicians and
Wow.
artists come, and they would hire him. So that, of course, is gone. Recording sessions are gone. You know what I mean? And
Wow.
so he didn't have, unfortunately for him, he did not have his own original music that was recorded that could have been an income stream for him. But since he didn't have that, because he's so busy, as
Right.
a working musician, that's 5 streams immediately zapped.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So he's part of, is he part of this mastermind group that you're
He
working
he's
on? Or I
he's
know.
not inside of it yet, and I must say this because again, it's in its infancy. So those of us who've gotten together, we determined how many voices we were going to have in it because we don't want it to be clutter or chatter. We want to recognize there's a real problem. Let's work on real solutions, real
Yeah.
strategies. So he's not inside yet, but what we want to do, this consortium, as we talk about what could be, what is, and what our strategy is, then we'll open the larger conversation up. But we
Right.
are working on solutions. There's so
It's
many. I mean, there's a couple rabbit trails I could go down, but I don't want to. I'm I'm very passionate about solutions. You know,
right.
I'm not I'm not I'm not into it just for the conversation, Deanna, just to say, oh yeah, there's a problem. Hey, there's a pandemic. It sucks. There's things that we can be doing, and that's where my passion lies.
Yeah, and it should. I think that's the route we all need to take, honestly, right now. And I love that when we were offline, you called it a plandemic.
Yes.
I haven't heard that. Did you make that up or did I miss that?
No, no, that's another rabbit hole we can go down. We can say plandemic. We can say scamdemic.
Yeah,
If you've read The Unseen Hand by A. Ralph Epperson, a book that was put out in the late 80s, he talked about some things that kind of happen, and you turn your head and you go, I don't know about that. But then when you look and see what actually is going on, what some regions or governments are doing with respect to the control factor of how society should act or shouldn't act, then you
yeah.
go, oh, okay. Um, Again, there's never been a situation that I've lived through, and I'm a pretty young man. You see this gray hair?
Yeah. I know you are.
I'm a pretty young man, but I've never seen a situation whereby society, economy can just be turned off at the
Yeah.
flip of a switch.
Pretty insane, isn't it? I mean, it's we've been talking. I mean, everybody obviously is talking about, but I know that Jason and I have talked about it as well, and we've talked a little bit about the baseball industry and like these stadiums, these players, like, are they going to come back? And the financial hardship of the leagues themselves. So it's crazy how they've actually just turned the whole economy off. Do you think this is the last time we're going to see this?
Probably not. we've seen similar situations before. I don't know how much time you have.
we got about 20 more minutes.
Okay, so we can talk about it offline, but again, the unseen hand, A. Ralph Epperson. I'm not preaching that book or anything like that, but it's just one of the more curious books about from the late 80s how we're walking through society. Of course, everybody knows 1984, George
Yeah.
Orwell, and just there are situations which make you go so
Right.
just going you have to look at your situation as an entrepreneur and see what you can do about it. What are you going to do in your industry? And
Right.
so as a musician, I think it's very valuable that we discuss what we're doing and what we want to do.
And everybody should be right now, as you said, everybody should really be taking a look at the industry they're in and saying, okay, so maybe we were caught off guard this time, but let's find some solutions. And
That's correct.
some people are, right? But if this happens again, what are those solutions? What are we going to do now? The musicians that you're talking to, what are some solutions that they're finding right now through all this?
Well, the first thing is technology is on our side. So, like what you and I are doing right now, uh,
Mhm.
being able to get to our customer base direct without there being a middleman, without sharing money with any other platform is absolutely essential. Because if you, and I'm just going to throw something out here, I'm not hating on Spotify, I'm not hating on Apple or any of these other third parties, but when you utilize someone else's platform, Facebook,
Right.
Google, whatever, it's not your platform.
Yep.
YouTube. So when you're on their platform, then they can pull you at any time or they can charge or take any of your income. So
Very
is there a
true.
way that I can get to you to purchase my music or to purchase my artistry in a way that is just direct? And so that's priority number one. Priority number two would be within the traditional norms of music, copyright, publishing, how your music is distributed to the larger collective, be a traditional radio or through the internet. What are those channels and platforms where I can still say, okay, well, I have my 2, 3, 700 devoted fan base, but what do I do to grow my audience? And what pipelines are available to me in order to get to them? So these are the conversations we're having.
So I heard what you said about like Spotify, Apple, and all that, right? What Where's the main platform that these musicians are putting their music so that they can have the consumers actually purchase it directly from them?
Well, right now, the king is either Spotify or Apple Music. Pandora running a third, and but the issue with these platforms are what they are paying the artists in return to give them exposure for their work. For example, there was just an article that came out yesterday concerning Joe Rogan. You know who Joe Rogan
I
is?
do, yes.
Incredible podcast. Well, he just signed, the story goes, $100 million agreement with Spotify, but that's an exclusive agreement to not have all of his shows on YouTube, Apple, and the other
Oh,
places. YouTube, so Spotify has kind of purchased the Joe
all
Rogan
of it.
podcast for $100 million. But what happened was Joe Rogan, genius that he is, was able to grow his audience organically. So Spotify really is capitalizing on the fact that he has 150 million subscribers to
Right.
his platform already, but he had to do the work of building his platform. So the
Yeah.
musician has to look at that and say, okay, what do I do? How did he do it? And he did it in some very unconventional ways. I know we only have 15 minutes, but in some very unconventional ways. And that allowed him to be attractive to someone where I'm sure him and his attorneys went in and wrote some rules, even though they're paying him $100 million.
But I'm glad you mentioned that because I think a lot of times I hear people saying, well, I'm going to start a YouTube channel and I want to be an influencer. I want to be, a YouTube star. I'm going to start a podcast. And right now, more than ever, honestly, I have seen so many podcasts happening. So,
Correct.
and so many people are just turning and starting these podcasts. And I think they recognize it, right? But I think, going back to what you said, what I hear is that they think that creating this podcast or creating this YouTube channel, and then everybody will come. It's easy, right? All I have to do is just, do this one thing and I'm going to be a star. Everybody's going to know me.
No, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But one of the things that I really value is I really value the hardcore listener. So
Yeah.
we have less than 100 subscribers right now, and the podcast has been out 6 months. But here are the emails that I get. I listened to that episode 4 times, or you really helped me here. And so I could have 1,000 people who just casually listen and it's not impacting them or helping them, or I can continue to grow one by one, two by two, those who said, hey, I had to rewind that, or I actually tried that.
Yes.
Now you're making traction.
I love that. That's what it's about. I mean, so many times people will get too focused on those vanity numbers
Correct.
and think, I need 1,000 listeners. I need 10,000 followers. And this is all the platforms. What you said, you just nailed it. You absolutely nailed it, because it's not about having those big vanity numbers. To me, it's always quality over quantity. I'd rather have those quality listeners that, like you said, that you're touching, that they're like, hey, I had to rewind this and listen to it again.
Yeah.
That's really what you should be doing. And I think when you set it up that way, and this is my opinion now, but I think whatever business you're doing, if you set that business up and it's not about you, but it's about serving,
Correct.
right? More than what you're getting, I think that's when you find the reward. When you set a business up and it's more about you and what are you going to get out of it, then I think you missed the boat.
Oh, totally and completely. And I mean, obviously you have to be somewhat an expert in what you're doing. You have to have some experience and expertise. And one of the starting points for this particular podcast was the fact that I've made a million mistakes. So let's talk about what you shouldn't do, and use that as a platform to go, here's what you don't do if you want to get hired back to a particular club. You don't do this, and this. As a band leader, and I've been the leader of a wonderful band called Sound Doctrine for many, many years. Well, here are the 7 major mistakes that I've made as a band leader, which I've lost members, I've lost revenue, and you begin to go with, hey, it really isn't about me, but here's some ways to screw it up. And so don't do like I'm doing. You succeed.
We've all screwed it up too, haven't we?
Many, many times.
Right? And I think that's so important, because people sometimes are afraid to even start because they're afraid to fail. Correct. And they don't want to make a mistake. They want everything perfect. They don't want to start that band. They don't want to take it too far. They're the musician in their house that has a lot of talent, but they're just afraid of putting themselves out there. Correct. Because, what will the world think?
That's true.
That's how long have you been doing this? I don't even know. How long have you been like a musician, and how did you all start it?
Oh my goodness. Well, as far as musicianship is concerned, being in a band, I was in my first band in the 5th grade, Grant Elementary School, and I'm still great friends and even collaborate with those gentlemen today. I'm 55, to give you an indication. All the high school bands, and back in the 70s, it was all about, the DJs didn't really come along until like 81, 82. They were getting the bands out of the way. But, we were doing the socials, high school socials and sock hops and the talent shows and all of that. And it really honed my childhood. And so I didn't get back into it. I got married in 95. I didn't get back really into it professionally until the towers fell in 2001. And that's when I began to really take my whole thing into stock. Like, wow, I got all this music. What's going to happen? Either it's a hobby or I'm going to do it. So I was reckless I believe in taking risks, but I was reckless because at the time I quit my job. We had little babies and whatnot. I quit it and just went all the way for it. I wouldn't do that right now. I think I'm a little wiser, but
Yeah, I did the same thing.
you know what I mean? Right. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I think that, it was the learning experience, the relationships that I formed along the way that has really helped to sustain me. And so praise God for a great wife, mwah, who,
Oh.
put up with the nonsense, because being married to a musician can be like, impulse.
And I've met her a couple times, and she really is
She's so
amazing.
laid back, isn't she? She's the balance,
I mean, your whole family, because I think I met your oldest daughter as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
at the studio one day. And no, your family is honestly absolutely amazing. You guys, there's just this energy of kindness around you. Like
Blessed.
you can just tell you guys, it's just you're genuine and have such a great heart, all of you. So you and your wife did an amazing job with your family, with all the recklessness that you caused.
Boy, yeah, I'm the weak link. That's for sure.
You did good. You guys did a great
I
job.
know how to shut up a little bit and sit in the corner. I'm the only guy in the house, right? So
Yeah.
I got the man cave in the basement. It's like, okay, go ahead,
Yeah. And
get
you and
back
your wife are you're both entrepreneurs. I mean, you're both small
That's
business owners. She's in real estate, so she's running her business,
That's
and,
right.
and you're doing yours. Now, has it always been that way since you guys have been
No,
married? Or?
no, we were, obviously in the workforce, especially when we first got married. And Lori didn't start in real estate. I think she's in her fifth year, going into her fifth year now. Like I said, since 2001 for the music, which
That's
has
right.
always been kind of thread. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's just like any other thing that if the income is not coming in, you got to go and you got to go do something, cut some grass, shovel some snow. Something's got to happen. So we've
Yeah.
been all over the mulberry bush in order to get where we are now, and still are not quote unquote here as far
Yeah.
as our measures are concerned, but definitely by God's grace, we're working toward it.
I love that. I mean, and you, in my opinion, I know we have different listeners and stuff, right? But my story, being a Christian, I've always given credit to God. People are like, "How did you do it? It looks so easy. How did you do this as a single mom?" Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, it wasn't me. Like, it really was. And I'll tell you what, he tries me. Like,
Yeah.
when I get cocky, and I'll tell people this all the time, when I get cocky, confident, and comfortable, right, he will make me wait for the 11th hour
Yeah.
before like a deal comes through that I'm like, phew. Like,
Yeah.
I'm on the verge of, do I have to go get a job? Like, what's happening? And then I'm like, all right, you know what? I heard you. Oh, you're getting too
Right.
comfy.
It is a walk of faith all the way. You're absolutely
Oh, yeah.
right. And a lot of times we're waiting for the chair. We're waiting for the finished product, but he never gives us the finished product. He gives us a tree. Okay.
Yeah.
And he says, you cut it out and you fashion it and you form it to get the chair. But I can find myself always looking for, where's the manifestation of it? I want the finished product. No, I'm going to give you the raw material and you do it.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I've never heard that before, but I like the way you just said that because that's so true. So, how long have you been a pastor as well? Let's talk about that.
20, 24 years in the ministry, right after, funny, right after we got married, and my wife never wanted to be a pastor's wife, ever. That's God having a sense of humor, right? And yeah, he called me into the ministry. I was grateful enough to go to a church who sent me to Bible school, and just been serving him in that capacity, which being a pastor and being an entre musician, I mean, there are a lot of similarities. There really are.
Okay.
Being
What
an
are some of
entre,
the similarities? Because I would think, I mean, yes. What are some of the similarities? Let's talk.
first, the walk of faith. Being an entrepreneur, you have to have a measure of faith. And again, there are different systems of belief in your audience and whatnot. So but the same time, there has to be that measure of I can do this. And you have to encourage yourself as much as you encourage the person that you are serving, your
Yeah.
customer, or your parishioner. You know, I need to be a source of encouragement to them, but I can pour, 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 pour. And if I'm not being poured into, then I'm no good to anybody else.
Yes.
Entre musicianship and entrepreneur.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I
So
do.
as an entrepreneur, are you reading biographies? Are you watching documentaries? Are you seeing the people who have gone on before you so you can learn and
Yeah.
get motivated? I mean, that's absolutely necessary. In my
Yeah.
faith, it's the word of God. It's devotional. It's making sure that my pipeline to Him, my
Yeah.
vertical pipeline is cool so that my horizontal is cool. So there are many, many similarities. Those are just a few, but I see myself walking in parallel as a
Yeah.
pastor and as an entre musician.
So in my mind initially, because when I think of musicians, when I think of some musicians like local musicians, I'm thinking of they're playing in bars,
Mhm.
rowdy. I'm thinking of 80s like hair band rock,
Yeah, yeah.
which to me is so different than like being a pastor. But I hear what you're saying, right? That there really are similarities in what you're
Oh yeah.
dealing with.
You know, you should come to a Pentecostal church. You want to hear rowdy?
Oh, I have been to a Pentecostal church years ago.
So you know, it's rowdy. Yeah, we don't sit there and just chill. It's not a
But
chill.
wait a minute, but Victory is Pentecostal. Oh no, it's
That is
not.
correct. Yes, it
Is
is. It's
it?
well,
Okay,
it's
because I
Assembly
belong there. I was there for
Assembly of
10
God.
years.
There you go. So but you know, you've been there when it's just been
Oh
rocking hard
yeah.
and heavy.
Yep. I was there, with Pastor Dave and Kathy, and I don't know if they're still there or
He's bishop. He's bishop over the 8 campuses. We've expanded to 8 campus. So him and Bishop and Pastor Kathy are very much still involved at Victory.
wow.
Mhm.
Yes, and I've met Dr. Juan, Pastor Juan as well. But I just he just earned his PhD with me. Like
He's that kind of dude too. He is that type of dude. He's on point. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, he's a good guy too. Very good guy. So, if somebody who is a musician, right, and they are looking for guidance of how to write these contracts and how to set up the business, how can they get in touch with you? What are some ways to get in touch with you?
Well, come to the entremusician.com. That's step one. Number two, start listening to the podcast. We are probably in our 70th episode. We put together a series on you and your band, from the conception of your band to whatever you define success as. We are chopping down everything that you need to know, from how to rehearse, how to record, how to put your set list together, what a good performance looks like, and we just break all of that down. Plus, I've been blessed to do many, 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 many conversations and interviews with people like Gary Hines, who's a 3-time Grammy Award winner, to Bob Baldwin, who's a jazz legend, to entre musicians like you and I, because we're all learning from each other. So
Yeah.
all of that is on our YouTube channel, just oodles of interviews. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of places to come.
Is it all is the podcast and the YouTube channel, the Entre Musician also, or
So the podcast is on Spotify, Apple, wherever. There's about 8 or 9 different places. On Anchor. As far as the videos, they're all on the YouTube channel. That includes the interviews as well as some advice. We do something called the Entre Musician Minute, where it's a quick tip that you can use right now. So all that's on the YouTube channel.
love it, love it. So make sure that you guys are checking it out and checking out Jere B. Jere, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. Love talking to you. I never get bored talking to you. It's so much fun. I learn so much. I laugh a lot. So
You laugh a lot anyway.
I do laugh a lot. You actually put that in my clip, which, by the way, I still have it. And I'm one of those ones that my podcast is on the back burner. And here's the thing, I have it easy, right? Because all these audios, I plan on pulling
Yeah.
the audio from from these lives and just putting it into the podcast, right? So it's not even like I have to re-record a podcast.
Yeah.
And you did my intro and you have my laugh, which that was so much fun doing it. Doing that.
Works very well.
So much fun. Yeah. It's such a cool intro. Like I want everybody to hear it. It was my ringtone for a long time, but anyhow, sassy girl. That's all right. But anyhow, we're getting off talking. Love having you on, and thank you for everything you do. Honestly, like I appreciate you as a friend. So thank you.
Feelings mutual. Please give Jason my love, and we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Sounds good. I'll see you later. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.